Buckle up for the most explosive celebrity showdown you'll ever hear about. Al Pacino's jaw-dropping walkout on live TV. Imagine there's a Hollywood titan, a legend of the silver screen steps, onto a talk show set, expecting a breezy chat about his latest project. But instead of warm smiles and easy questions, he's blindsided by a host dead set on turning the interview into a personal war zone. What happens next? A fiery clash that ends with one of the most iconic actors ever storming off a live broadcast. Leaving jaws dropped and the internet buzzing, this is a story of Al Pacino's unforgettable face-off on The View. A moment so raw, so intense, it's already one of the wildest celebrity interview meltdowns in history. Before we dive into this roller coaster tale, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment below with your take on celebrity interviews gone wrong. Trust me, you won't want to miss a second of this, because what unfolds is pure chaos wrapped in Hollywood drama. It was supposed to be just another day on The View. Al Pacino, the iconic star of The Godfather, Scarface, and countless cinematic gems, walked onto the set to promote his newest film at 83. Pacino's seen it all decades of red carpets, grueling shoots, and thousands of interviews. He's known for his fiery intensity, unmatched passion, and a professionalism that's carried him through a career spanning over half a century. The man's a living legend, a master at handling everything from deep film discussions to fluffy morning show banter with charm. But this morning something felt off. From the moment he sat down, the pre-show chit-chat was tense, the air thick with vibe. Even a pro like Pacino couldn't pin down. Little did he know he was walking into a trap set by one of the show's most polarizing hosts, Joy Behar, The View's sharp-tongued veteran known for her take-no-prisoner style and knack for stirring the pot, had clearly decided this wouldn't be a typical promotional interview. From the moment the cameras rolled, it was obvious she had her own agenda. As the audience settled in and the other hosts flashed practice smiles, Joy leaned forward, eyes glinting with a predatory spark. So she began, voice dripping with intent. Let's talk about your new film. But first I gotta ask, looking back on your career, do you ever regret glorifying violence in movies like Scarface? I mean, don't you think Hollywood has a responsibility to society? The question hit like a punch. Pacino, caught off guard by the aggressive opener, paused, eyes narrowing, a telltale sign for anyone who's seen his iconic roles that he was sizing up the moment. You could feel the shift in the room. This wasn't the warm, fuzzy vibe of a daytime talk show. Pacino leaned back, voice calm, but edged. Well, Joy, that's a pretty heavy way to start. He said, a faint smile tugging at his lips. Try and keep things light. I've always believed cinema is about exploring the human condition. Every part of it, even the dark stuff. We're storytellers, not preachers. Our job is to hold up a mirror, not tell people how to live. Was a thoughtful, measured response, the kind you'd expect from someone who spent decades dissecting the craft. But Joy wasn't here for nuance. She barreled forward, ignoring his answer. Sure, but how many kids watched Scarface and thought Tony Montana was a hero? Don't you feel any responsibility for that day? Other hosts, Whoopi Goldberg, Sarah Haynes, Sunny Hostin, and Alyssa Farrah Griffin, swapped uneasy glances. This wasn't the vibe they'd signed up for the audience to. Since the shift, their murmurs fading into a tense hush. Whoopi tried to steer things to safer waters, asking about Pacino's preparation for his new role. But Joy wasn't having it. No, let him answer. She snapped, waving off her co-host with a flick of her wrist. This is important. Al, you've made millions playing violent characters. Don't you owe society an explanation? Pacino's jaw tightened, the spark of his legendary intensity flickering to life. I don't owe society anything except honest performances, he said, voice steady, but heavy silence in the room. Every role I've taken, I've approached with respect and dedication. If you want a real conversation about art and responsibility, I'm game. But let's not pretend that's what this is about. The studio, when quiet, the hum of cameras, the only sound. As tension spiked, Joy, undeterred, leaned closer, her smile sharp enough to cut. So what do you mean by that? She shot back, tone daring him to escalate. Pacino didn't flinch. I mean, you seem more interested in picking a fight than having a discussion, he said, voice sharpening. I've been doing this for over 50 years, Joy. I know the difference between an interview and an interrogation. The word interrogation hung like a challenge, and the other hosts looked like they wanted to vanish. Sarah shifted uncomfortably while Sunny stared at her notes, hoping someone else would take the reins. But Joy was just getting started. Oh, so now I'm interrogating you, she said, with a laugh that held no warmth. I'm asking legitimate questions about your career choices. If you can't handle that, maybe you shouldn't be in this business. The audience gasped softly, sensing the line. Just cross. Pacino stared at Joy, eyes boring into her with the intensity that made Tony Montana a legend. Listen, lady, he said, voice low and deliberate, carrying the weight of a man who's faced tougher foes and a talk show host with an agenda. I've been answering questions about my work since before you Had your first TV job, there's a difference between asking questions and being disrespectful. The word disrespectful landed like thunder, and Joy's face flushed red. Disrespectful, she repeated, voice rising for asking about the impact of your movies. That's my job. I'll maybe in your Hollywood bubble. Everyone fawns over you, but out here in the real world, we ask tough questions. Pacino's eyebrows shot up, incredulity flashing across his face. The real world, he said, tone laced with disbelief. You think sitting behind that desk makes you more connected to the real world than someone who spent 50 years telling stories about real people, real struggles, real pain. I grew up in the Bronx, Joy. I know what the real world looks like better than you ever will. The audience erupted into gasps and murmurs, the clash spiraling into uncharted territory. Whoopee. Try it again. Let's talk about your new project, she said, desperation in her voice, but Joy wasn't backing down. No, we're not done, she declared, cutting Whoopi off. With a sharp gesture, I want to know why you think it's okay to keep making violent movies. How do you sleep at night, knowing your portrayal of drug dealers and criminals probably inspired real violence? The accusation hit like a bomb, and even for the View, known for fiery debates, this was too far. The other host froze, faces a mix of shock and horror. Producers in the control room waved, frantically signaling to rein it in. Pacino leaned back, posture tense, but controlled eyes locked on Joy. That's not just unfair, Joy, he said, voice steady, but laced with quiet fury. That's irresponsible. You're accusing me of causing violence. I had nothing to do with. That's not journalism. That's character assassination. The phrase character assassination echoed through the studio, the audience silent, hanging on every word. Joy, unfazed, laughed bitterly. Character assassination. I'm asking you to own the influence your work has had. But I guess that's too much to ask from someone who's been in an ivory tower for decades. Pacino's eyes flashed, his temper starting to break through. Ivory tower. He repeated, voice rising for first time. Lady, I clawed my way up from nothing. I know what real violence looks like, and I've never glorified it. Every character I played has consequences. Every story has meaning. If you can't see that, you don't understand the first thing about what I do. Joy fired back, pointing at him. Don't lecture me about understanding. I've been covering real news while you've been playing pretend for money. I know what violence looks like, too, and I know movies like yours contribute to it. The other hosts were in damage control mode. Sonny tried pivoting to Pacino's acting process, but Joy shut her down with a venomous glare. We're having an important conversation here, she said, eyes never leaving Pacino. This is the kind of discussion we should have with Hollywood elites who think they're above criticism. Pacino's voice took a dangerous edge. Above criticism. I've been criticized my entire career, and I've learned from it, but there's a difference between criticism and whatever this is. You came into this with an agenda, and you're not interested in anything I have to say. Joy smirked, leaning back. My agenda is holding powerful men accountable, something that doesn't happen enough in your world. Pacino stood slightly, hands gripping the armrest, voice low. But Seer, in my world, you don't know the first thing about my world. You don't know about the years of struggle, the late nights, studying lines of respect I have for the art and the audience. You've decided who I am before I even open my mouth. Joy didn't miss a beat. I've decided based on 50 years of your movies. She shot back. And what I see is someone who's made a fortune glorifying everything that's wrong with masculinity in this country. Studio went dead silent, aware of her words. Heavy, even the crew stopped moving, eyes glued to the drama. Pacino shook his head, expression shifting from anger to something colder, more resolute. You know what, Joy, he said, voice dripping with controlled fury. In all my years in this business, I've met a lot of people, some good, some bad, some just doing their job. But I've rarely met someone so hell-bent on tearing someone down for no reason other than their own ego. Joy's face twisted, voice cracking. My ego. This isn't about ego. This is about accountability. Something your generation doesn't get. Pacino's eyes narrowed. My generation, we built the industry you're sitting in right now. Joy, we took risks, told stories, paved the way for everyone who came after. And you want to lecture me about accountability? The tension was unbearable. The studio, a pressure cooker, Alyssa, made a desperate attempt to redirect, asking about Pacino's charitable work. But Joy cut her off with a venomous, don't change the subject. Turning Pacino, she doubled down. We're talking about the impact of violent entertainment. And I want to know why Al Pacino thinks he gets a pass. Pacino's face darkened, voice steady, but razor sharp. I don't want a pass, I want a fair conversation. But you've made up your mind about who I am, and nothing I say will change that. Joy smirked, thinking she had the upper hand, maybe, because what you represent is everything wrong with Hollywood, the old boys club, the violence, the toxic masculinity, all wrapped in awards and accolades. Pacino stared a long moment in the room, holding its breath. His expression shifted not to anger, but almost pity. You know what, Joy, He said, voice eerily calm. I came here to talk about my work, connect with the audience, maybe a fun. I've done thousands of interviews, and I've always been respectful, even when questions were tough. But this isn't an interview. Any more Joy, sensing a chance to pounce, leaned forward. This is what happens when someone gets called out and doesn't like it, she said with a smug smile. This is the entitled behavior. I was talking about Pacino's expression, hard in the look, that could stop a train. Entitled, he repeated, voice slow. Joy, I want you to listen carefully. I've spent my life dedicated to my craft. I've studied every character, lived with and brought truth to every role. I've never asked for special treatment, never demanded easy questions, never shied away from tough topics. But what you're doing now isn't journalism. It's harassment. Joy scoffed, rolling her eyes. Harassment for asking about your movies. Give me a break. Al, this is what I mean about Hollywood. Privilege the minute someone asks a real question, you cry foul. Pacino's voice dropped to a whisper, somehow more intense. A real question you could have asked about my process, how I tackle tough characters, or responsibility. I feel as an actor how I've grown over the years. Instead, you attack me, personally blame me for societal problems. I didn't create Whoopi's sense in the spiral. Tried one last time. Maybe we could talk about your new project, she said, pleading. But Joy cut her off. No, we're not moving on. She snapped. I want Al to answer. Do you or do you not think your violent movies have had a negative impact on society? Pacino closed his eyes a moment. When he opened them, there was resigned sadness. You really want an answer? He asked. Yes, I do, Joy said, triumphant. Pacino nodded. All right, here is your answer. I think real art holds a mirror to society. Sometimes that mirror shows things we don't want to see. The characters I played, they're not heroes. Joy, they're cautionary tales. Tony Montana doesn't end up happy. He ends up dead, alone, a wreck. Michael Corleone doesn't find peace, he finds emptiness. These are tragedies, not celebrations. But some people miss that point. Joy jumped in. Some people don't. Pacino didn't flinch. Exactly, some people don't. But that's not the fault of the art. It's the fault of people who misinterpret it. Should we stop telling stories about tough subjects because some might get the wrong idea? Should we only make movies about kittens and sunshine? Joy rolled her eyes. Don't be ridiculous. Pacino's voice hardened him. Not being ridiculous, Joy, you are. You're asking me to take responsibility for how others interpret my work. That's like blaming Shakespeare for every murder inspired by Macbeth. Joy's face flushed. Don't compare yourself to Shakespeare. That's the arrogance I'm talking about. Pacino's patience frayed, but he kept his tone measured. I'm not comparing myself to Shakespeare, making a point about artistic responsibility. But you're not interested in that point. You just want to attack. Joy crossed her arms, voice dripping sarcasm. I want honesty, something in short supply in Hollywood these days. Pacino's eyes flashed, voice rising. Honesty. You want honesty. Harry's honesty for you, Joy. This is the most unprofessional interview I've ever been part of. I've been treated with more respect by paparazzi outside a diner than here today. Joy smirked, thinking she won Obuhu, the big movie star, isn't getting the royal treatment. Welcome to the real world. That was a breaking point. Pacino stood slowly, the movement commanding every you know what, Joy, he said, voice calm. But searing, I've been in this business over 50 years. I've worked with the greatest directors, actors, writers across generations. I've been criticized by people who know what they're talking about, and I've learned from it. But I've never been treated with such disrespect by someone who claims to be a professional. Joy tried to interrupt. If you can't handle the heat. But Pacino held up a hand, silencing her. No, you're done talking. I listened to you. Now you listen to me. I came here as a guest on your show with respect for this program and its audience. I came prepared to talk about my work, my life, my experiences. Instead, you use me as a punching bag for whatever grudge you have against the entertainment industry. The studio was silent. Even Joy seemed stunned by his words. I don't know what happened in your life to make you this angry. Pacino continued, voice steady but cutting, and frankly, I don't care. But I'm not going to sit here and let you take out on me. I've been nothing but professional, and you've been nothing but hostile, and I'm done with it. Joy, scrambling, sneered. So you're just going to run away, just like every Hollywood prima donna who can't handle criticism? Pacino smiled, a cold, humorless smile. Criticism? Is that what you call this, Joy? I've been criticized by the best, and I've appreciated it because it made me better. But this isn't criticism. This is just mean, and lives too short to waste on mean people. He began removing his microphone, panic rippling through the studio. The crew froze. Producers signaled frantically. Whoopi pleaded, Al, please, don't go. We can start over. Pacino looked at her, expression softening. Whoopi, you're a class act. You always have been. But I can't do this anymore. I want. Joy, sensing she was losing, jabbed, fine, go ahead. And leave, show everyone what you're really made of. Pacino paused, hand on the microphone, turned to her one last Time you want to know what I'm really made of joy am. Made of 50 years of hard work, dedication, respect for my craft, and made of thousands of hours studying, preparing, giving everything to every role, and made of love for storytelling and the people who watch our movies. And am made of enough self-respect to know when it's time to walk away from someone who doesn't deserve another second of my time. With that, he handed his microphone to his stunt assistant and walked toward the exit joy desperate. Called after him, "This is live television. Al, you can't just." Lee Pacino stopped at the set's edge, turned back, and delivered a final devastating line, "Watch me." And with that, Al Pacino, one of the greatest actors ever, walked off the view, leaving a stunned audience, mortified hosts, and a red-faced Joy Behar who had learned what happens when you push a legend too far. The cameras kept rolling as the host scrambled to fill the air. Whoopi tried pivoting to a lighter topic, but the damage was done. The audience, crew, and millions at home had witnessed a masterclass in dignity under fire, a reminder that respect is earned, not demanded, and even legends have limits. The internet exploded, clips going viral. Within hours, fans and critics debated who was right. But one thing was clear: Al Pacino walked away head held high, proving why he's a Hollywood icon. So what do you think of this epic showdown? Have you seen Celebrity Interview crash like this? Drop your thoughts below. I'm dying to hear, and don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping Hollywood stories. Trust me, you won't want to miss what's next.